The family that vacations together stays together. At least that was the plan. Except now the dastardly desk clerk is saying he can't confirm your connecting rooms.
Wait, what?
That's right, ma'am. You have rooms 201 and 709.
No, we cannot be 5 floors away from our kids.
The doors have double locks. They'll be fine.
When you want your connecting rooms confirmed before you arrive, it matters where you stay.
Welcome to Hilton. I see your connecting rooms are already confirmed.
Hilton, for the stay.
You know when you reach that age where everyone and their mother won't shut up about their credit scores, yet it seems like no one really understands what's so special about those 3 random numbers? That's because credit scores are meaningless, unless you have Credit Karma to show you how to use them. We use those 3 random numbers, plus your financial profile, to help you find your next opportunity. Like a more rewarding credit card, a game plan that helps you pay down debt faster, or a personal loan to help you save more on interest payments each month. Cha-ching! Download Intuit Credit Karma today to get started.
Welcome into 49ers Access. My name is Sterling Bennett, and can anything be easy for the San Francisco 49ers in 2024? In a game, they had a 17-point lead. Of course, it has to come down to the Dallas Cowboys' final drive with about 3 minutes left on the clock. Every victory thus far for the San Francisco 49ers, maybe outside of the Patriots game in week number 1, it really has been tooth and nail to the finish. San Francisco gets the win against the Dallas Cowboys on Sunday Night Football. They win 30-24. They get back to 500. They get back to 4-4 on the year. They avoid being 3-5 going into the bye week. And because of the tiebreakers and how they currently work out, the San Francisco 49ers are in second place in the NFC West, just behind the Arizona Cardinals. They're going into the bye week this coming week. They'll have the week off. They can get healthy, and they've set themselves up to potentially go on a run in the second half of the season. That was the plan, right? Beat Dallas, escape, survive, get the week off, get healthy, get Christian McCaffrey back. Maybe if you're lucky, John Feliciano comes back. Maybe Dre Greenlaw's back in a few weeks' time, and you set yourself up to make that second half push and hopefully take over the NFC West, self-scout yourself, and get back to playing San Francisco 49er football. But this game, like almost every other one thus far this season for the San Francisco 49ers, it just comes down to inability to close games out. Now, there's so much to like in a game like this. I thought the first half was ugly for San Francisco, but that second half, that third quarter for the Niners was darn near perfect football, which you can see there is glimpses of who this team once was last year. Obviously, you lose Jordan Mason. You're reliant on a fourth-round pick, Guerendo, who I think played phenomenal, his breakout game thus far this season, but it's just never easy for San Francisco. And Bobo on the YouTube comment says here, we finally properly closed out a team and held a lead. I would say yes to holding a lead, but we did not properly close out the Dallas Cowboys in this game. Kyle Shanahan calling second down passing plays on 2nd and 3, then having to go on 3rd and long, and there's a check down to use check. It's just, you're setting yourself up. Shanahan continues to dictate what the opposing defensive coordinators do. I hate that. It's something that, despite watching this team blow so many leads this year and play tight games and lose those games late, there never seems to be the ability or the lack of awareness to learn in that. This game is close. For as happy as we are, San Francisco is back to 500. They 1,000% with certainty could have lost this game, and we're all having our heads hanging down low. We're feeling bad, but that's not the case. Sometimes what-ifs don't matter. Sometimes you have to point to San Francisco is 4-4. They've set themselves up for that second half push. They won a football game that they desperately needed to win, and I thought starting off with Brock Purdy, I think that is one of the bigger stories of the day, because that first half was just not good. There was, the fumble early. And there was a lot of missed throws. One to Kittle on third down. He didn't hit that Deebo Samuel fourth down just flat over the middle. He just threw behind him. And we're sitting back and we're like, look, Purdy was terrible against the Chiefs. That Brock Purdy kind of carried over into this game in the first half, albeit minus the takeaways and turnovers. But that second half from Brock Purdy, despite how shaky that first half was, we saw this, I don't want to say elite, but we saw a bounce-back performance from San Francisco's starting quarterback in this game. You look at how that second half started. San Francisco gets the football, immediately marches all the way downfield, puts up 7, gets the interception, puts up 7 more, and they score 27, I think, or 21 unanswered points on the Dallas Cowboys in that third quarter. Flip this game on its head, and that right there is where San Francisco needs to be. In that third quarter, I think kind of encompasses everything San Francisco was previously and who they are not now. You watch that third quarter, San Francisco, and mainly Brock Purdy, hits Kittle for 43 yards over the middle. He runs, he gets some yak, then he gets a touchdown later in that drive. The very next Cowboys drive, Lenore gets the interception. San Francisco finally is able to capitalize on their defensive getting takeaways. They score a touchdown, and then again they score again later. This was really... That third quarter was exactly what San Francisco needed. They only scored, I think, 3 points in the fourth quarter. So that had it not been for that big third quarter, San Francisco doesn't win this game at all. They scored 21 points in that third quarter, 24 points in the second half alone. And yeah, for a team that we talked about coming in, should have dominated this game. San Francisco didn't. I did think that, again, going back to Brock Purdy quickly here, that first half was kind of scary. You, and maybe just me, but I was like, whoa, like Purdy's on a downward trend, not playing great, but thankfully it's not how you start, it's how you finish. I don't know what Brock Purdy said or had to do in that locker room. I don't know if it was taking some kind of serum or getting that, magic juice from Space Jam in that halftime locker room, but he was a different quarterback coming out in the second half. He was scrambling. He was pump faking dudes on 3rd and 3. Pump faked the Dallas defender like 2 or 3 times and scrambled for a first down. Had that nice 3rd and goal touchdown pass to George Kittle. It was hike, snap, throw, or rocket to him. Conley almost got called back for the pick play. They said, nope, it's not a pick play, which it most certainly was a pick play, but hey, you'll take what they give you. Then there was, I thought, Purdy's best play of the day, maybe outside of the touchdown passes, but that broken screen pass to Deebo Samuel. The design is a broken screen pass to Deebo. He sees a defender play it perfectly, pump fakes him, and just says, you know what, I'm taking it myself. Scrambles for a first down, 15 yards downfield, and you're like, heck yes. The floodgates opened for San Francisco's offense in that third quarter. The Dallas Cowboys were on their heels, and Purdy, I think, was a big part of that. There was this considered effort for the Dallas Cowboys to have 6 defensive linemen on the field to blitz on shotgun plays where San Francisco's lined up in shotgun, usually 4 or 5 wide, and they were doing that all night long. And in that first half, it was ugly, not just for Brock Purdy, but the Dallas Cowboys have one of the worst run defenses since the year 2000. We talked about, Jordan Mason coming in, top 5 leading rusher, how he should be able to run all over this Dallas Cowboys run defense. That was not the case. The Dallas Cowboys sold out for the run consistently. They were like, you know what? We know our run defense sucks. Let's put 6 guys up there and make the Niners have to throw the football. In that third quarter, San Francisco was able to consistently throw the football over and over and over again. George Kittle, I think, being the major part of that. Deebo Samuel on and off the field in this one with a rib injury, I believe, and of course the pneumonia he was having. But on Brock Purdy's case, I thought terrible first half. Just terrible first half, inefficient, inconsistent, inaccurate, which unfortunately this team has kind of come to know a slow first half start. Not just Brock Purdy, but this team is a very slow starting offense, which is not who they were last year. Hopefully, CMC can fix those things. But one thing this team has yet to do offensively this year is those second half adjustments. Did it against Seattle, did it against the Cowboys tonight couldn't do it against the Chiefs and didn't do it against the Rams or the Cardinals, but did it in games where the back's against the wall. You beat the NFC opponent you had to beat this week, got yourself another conference win. So overall, it wasn't pretty. It wasn't really that good, to be honest with you, but it was a win San Francisco had to have. George Kittle was awesome in this game for San Francisco. Again, National Tight Ends Day. He celebrated in maybe the best fashion humanly possible. He was running over dudes. He was carrying like 4 or 5 linemen with him. Of course, he had 6 catches for 128 yards and 1 touchdown. And I think this year, where we've kind of talked about, Brock Purdy gets his hype and his criticism at times. Jordan Mason gets his as well, which the flowers are deserved for Mason and, Deebo Samuel, but George Kittle has been this team's most consistent playmaker all year long, whether it's in the red zone against the Vikings, against the Seahawks, against the Cowboys. George Kittle continues to be this team's number 1 target. I'm hoping and I'm begging that when or if Christian McCaffrey comes back and Deebo's fully healthy and Pearsall and Cowling are integrated into the offense completely, that Kittle, this momentum doesn't go away for George Kittle. He is one of the best game changers at the tight end position in football, and we've seen it in the Seahawks game, this game, the Vikings game. Even despite the loss, George Kittle is a playmaker that can change the game for your offense. I'm hoping that Shanahan can see that and utilize that because he's having another phenomenal year. Going to be an All-Pro this year for sure. He's been awesome. He surpassed Dwight Clark for the 3rd most receiving yards in Niner history and caught his 500th career pass. I think that's 5th all-time, only a few behind, he's a lot behind Jerry Rice, who's the GOAT, obviously, has 1,000, it feels like, but he doesn't. Then T.O., Dwight Clark, and some others involved in there, but it goes to show you just how good George Kittle has been for the San Francisco 49ers ever since, 2018, 2017. He's been awesome. And he's awesome to this day. I think he was the biggest factor in San Francisco winning this game in that 3rd quarter, made back-to-back-to-back big plays. Just those 3 consecutive drives for San Francisco, Kittle was the man. And I think that, we have to, I get it, it's his holiday, he's celebrating, having a good time, but outside of the holiday stuff, Kittle has just been the most consistent playmaker for this team in 2024. And Kittle gets so much criticism for being injured at times, albeit it's not entirely true. And kind of disappearing in big games, which that's more of a scheme issue than Kittle's problem. But I think so far this year, Kittle has been this team's best offensive player, bar none. And he carried this offense in that 3rd quarter in this game. Isaac Guerendo is also great, I think, for San Francisco. Did have that hiccup late in the game where things got kind of testy. On a 2nd and 3, you're like, cool, put this game away. Shanahan calls a passing play for whatever reason, and Guerendo, who is not a great pass blocker, just whiffs on the blitzer and got Brock Purdy nearly killed. Thank God Brock held on to that football. That could have been a fumble, and if Dallas recovered, that could have been just a nightmare scenario for San Francisco. But outside of that one hiccup Guerendo had, I thought that Mason looked slow in this game. And again, he has a shoulder injury. He had the blue non-contact jersey on throughout the majority of the week, and he's dealt with the nagging stuff, which goes back into the conversation of, does he have longevity? Can he hold up for 18 weeks or whenever they can get back to Christian McCaffrey, which thankfully feels like it's going to happen in week 10 against the Buccaneers. But Mason's banged up. And I think Guerendo against the Seahawks and in this game against the Dallas Cowboys provides something that Mason simply doesn't have. And that is speed. That is, while Guerendo's vision's not great at times, that'll improve with reps in the offense. This was the best Guerendo has looked his entire year. That Seattle Seahawks last 77-yard run, whatever it was, 76-yard run to kind of ice that game for the Niners, that kind of jades the box score in a good way, you could say. But this game, I think, was his best, most consistent effort. When he was in the backfield, the entire offense changed. Obviously, he didn't make or break the game for San Francisco, but they couldn't run the football in that first half. It was just stopped. They had less than 3 yards a carry in the first half against the worst run defense in football this year. Like you're sitting back like, if they can't run the football, this is a schematic issue. This is a problem. And the minute Mason got hurt and didn't come back in that second half, Guerendo, it was like, here's the torch, pass it to you and carry it on. And he didn't just, walk it. He sprinted that sucker all the way down, got his first career touchdown tonight, had multiple back-to-back-to-back big runs, and he really felt like where the offense was struggling, they were kind of having to pull teeth to get rushing yards. He was a breath of fresh air on this offense. In that third quarter, he had that big 19-yard run, then the next play a 15-yard run, and had it not been by a holding by George Kittle, had another big yard or another big run to get into the red zone, which didn't actually matter because it didn't count it, but Guerendo was effectively running all the way through the Dallas Cowboys run defense, which was like awesome to see. We have some comments here on the YouTube chat. Want to get to them here. Kawachipto said, I don't know, it got dicey there. Guerendo just blocks on a sack. Ricky was wide open. Brock was able to release it and seal the game. Maybe that's the case. I still wouldn't call a passing play on 2nd and 3 when you're trying to run the clock out. Doesn't make sense. I get that, and that goes back to the Shanahan problem of when they're bringing 6 or 7, let's try to get them. And yes, if Guerendo picks up that blitzer, maybe there's somebody open. Likely there is. But the thing is, you want to force the Dallas Cowboys to use timeouts. 1, if they have any left. But 2, the Niners on 2nd and 3, with Guerendo playing well in this game, why would you not trust him? Even if you have to go to third and 1, you can quarterback sneak twice. Like that had worked all night for San Francisco. We also have some comments here by Bobo saying the score should have been more because the refs called back a few touchdowns. Yes, I know Brock in that first half wasn't great. He did have that big 66-yard touchdown pass to Deebo Samuel called back because Eric Saubert was called for holding. So you can always talk about, what could have been, and, Brock wasn't too bad because of that, and yes, San Francisco could have had more points for sure. You can also point to the Dallas Cowboys getting a break, Mooney Ward's DPI in the red zone, that kind of put them at the 1-yard line. They scored there. And then even later, Mooney Ward's second DPI, which was kind of ticky-tack, was definitely a worse call by the refs, gave the Dallas Cowboys like 20 free yards, gave them a first down, which led to CeeDee Lamb's first wide-open touchdown of the night. So there was some, I guess you can say, extracurricular or exterior things that made the game close for San Francisco on both sides, defensively and offensively, holding calls, which kind of gets to, I think, one of the bigger issues by the Niners this year, is that they continue to shoot themselves in the foot. They are a team that has arguably, and I get injuries matter now, but arguably have one of the highest potentials in football. Now, this year, record-wise, the way they played, maybe that comes down a little bit, but, if they can execute on special teams against the Vikings and against the Rams and against the Cardinals, maybe they win those games, and we're sitting here, with 2 losses, and we're like, wow, you're freaking 5-3, 6-2, wow, those things are great, which that's obviously not the case, but they continually get in their own way. Holding calls were terrible. The Saubert holding call on Deebo Samuel's first or only non-touchdown in this game, 66 yards, didn't count, got called back, ended that drive for San Francisco, essentially. The Guerendo big run to get in the red zone, that got called back. They just continue to get in their way. Purdy is missing Deebo Samuel on that 4th and 1 on like the 45-yard line. Like, those are plays that last year this team hits. Those are plays that usually when they're on, this team is not holding. They're hitting those 4th downs. It's like those are gimmies that you have to have, and this team just continually finds a way to get in their own way, which maybe they get the week off and they get Christian McCaffrey back and Shanahan self-scouts, and like that's the perfect scenario, right? Everything that, maybe you hindered yourself on that stops in the second half of the season, which if that does happen, this team can definitely go on a run. I think it was Joe Burrow today for the Bengals talked about, I think they're 3-5 already this year, something like that. Excuse me. And talked about that if they have to win 7 of their next 10 games. And that's what San Francisco did in 2021, I believe. And it's like, yeah, San Francisco is 4-4, second place in the NFC West. If they just win 6 more games, the odds they win the NFC West are pretty high. The Seahawks, are they real? I don't think so. San Francisco already has a tiebreaker on them. I am more scared of the Rams than Seattle and the Cardinals. I think San Francisco had the Cardinals dead to rights, just couldn't put them away. They obviously trounced Seattle in Seattle. But the Rams, if they're healthy, they can beat anybody. Defense ain't great, but the offense is so good, they can beat anybody. So despite being in last place, I guess you can say, by the Rams by like 1 or half a game now, I'm not scared of the Cardinals. I'm not scared of the Seahawks. I am fearing the Rams above those teams. But San Francisco can put themselves in a position where if they get on a run here, they don't have to worry about the Rams. And that's why this slow start has hurt them so much, where you beat the Rams in week 3, you put them away. Their season's over with. They are another game below 500. They're 2.5 games back in the NFC West. Maybe they do trade Cooper Kupp. And the way San Francisco has played so poorly and inconsistently has kind of created this domino effect thus far in the NFC West, which is why you had to win this game, and thank God they did. We had Patrick B in the comments saying here, fire Kyle Shanahan. He has no idea how to hold a lead. That part might be true. I wouldn't push back on that. We have seen a game like this like 4 or 5 times this year already. My dad texted me when they were up by 10 and was like, here we go again. And I was like, no, it's going to be fine. Get a field goal. And the Cowboys scored. It was like, uh-oh. But the second part of Patrick B's comments,
The family that vacations together stays together. At least that was the plan. Except now the Dastardly Desk Clerk is saying he can't confirm your connecting rooms.
Wait, what?
That's right, ma'am. You have rooms 201 and 709.
No, we cannot be 5 floors away from our kids.
The doors have double locks. They'll be fine.
When you want your connecting rooms confirmed before you arrive, it matters where you stay.
Welcome to Hilton. I see your connecting rooms are already confirmed.
Hilton, for the stay.
Are hire the Lions offensive coordinator, that being Ben Johnson, once the season ends. That's not going to happen. Ben Johnson, first off, Jed York's not going to fire Kyle Shanahan. Second off, there's a whole other 8 games to go, 9 games to go for San Francisco. So there's a big stretch of time, 10 weeks to go in total for the Niners this year. If they win 6 more games, they're 10-7, likely win the division, likely host a playoff game. And if that's the case, and they get Christian McCaffrey back, like, we have no idea if San Francisco can put this behind them. And if they can, things can be very, very different. But to your first point, the Shanahan blowing leads, not holding leads, is undoubtedly his biggest detractor. It is like, how can you be up by 17 and it feels like in the blink of an eye, it's now a 1-score game. And there's blown coverages, Renardo Green and Jair Brown come together, and there's a field goal. Like, you can see what leads up to it and how it falls apart, but it's like, oh my God. Like, again, this game, the Cardinals game, the Rams game, it feels like if there's 1 second on that clock, this game is not over. Like, you watched the Commanders game today. It was a 50-yard Hail Mary in the back of the end zone because Tyreek Stevenson for the Bears is out there taunting Commanders fans. He tips the ball, and the guy behind him catches it for a game-winning touchdown. And it's like, that's what it feels like has happened to San Francisco 3 times this year, and it almost happened again. So I get it, Patrick B. There's frustration. Not closing games has been a problem since 2019. But that goes back to me to, on 3rd and 1, you're designing a play for Ronnie Bell on a bootleg, which like Ronnie Bell is his own whole conversation of just being a bad football player and why he won the roster, but injuries have led to this for him. But why is that play not designed for a faster receiver that can separate? Like, I don't know. The guy that runs a 4.3 40 time, Jacob Cowing. I'm not going to criticize Shanahan for not utilizing Cowing in this game, but if there's anyone to not design plays for, that's Ronnie Bell. That is the last player you want touching the ball, even thinking about giving the ball to, because 1, he'll probably drop it. 2, he might fumble it. And 3, he's not a playmaker. He's a plank of wood out there playing receiver, but he can block. But that doesn't make sense to me. Run the football on 3rd and 1, make the opposing worst defense in football in regards to the run, stop you. That's what I would do. It's like when you're a Major League Baseball pitcher and you throw 100 miles an hour. I get it, you have to change up in the curveball, but if you have 101 or 100 mile an hour fastball, wouldn't it be smart to make the opposing team stop that first? Like, Shanahan is so quick to get off of the run game, and you look at the box score in this one, the San Francisco 49ers obviously won this game 30-24, but Isaac Guerendo didn't really get the ball until the second half started. They had 2.9 yards a carry once or in that first half. Guerendo comes in, touches the football 14 times for 85 yards, 1 touchdown, and 6.1 yards a pop. Is that not something you'd lean on when it's 3rd and 1, when it's 2nd and 3 to put games away? Like, to be realistic here, the Dallas Cowboys really shouldn't have touched the football on that last drive they had. Shouldn't have touched the football in a one score game at all. The clock should have been, if they even touched the ball at any point in the fourth quarter late, should have been a 10 to 13 to 14 to 20 point lead for San Francisco. Like, the inability, the lack of just like simple stuff. I was watching, I believe it may have been the Denver Broncos game today, and Tony Romo made a comment on the broadcast of like, well, this isn't Madden. And duh, we got that, Tony, but even in Madden, when you want to ice the clock, what are you doing? Okay, it's 2nd and 3. It's 3rd and 1. What are you doing? You want to make that team use timeouts. You want to put this game away. Run the football. Tell that running back to hold on tight, brother. We're going to push you for a first down. And it's like, there's more creativity from Kyle when he's down by 20 than when he's up by 17 to put games away. And you don't have to call these exotic plays. Just pound the rock. I think anybody would be okay with back-to-back Kyle Juszczyk fullback dives, which in this game didn't even work. I'd be okay with that twice on 3rd and 2 and 4th and 1. Like, let that happen. I'd be okay with back-to-back quarterback sneaks. You want to push that sucker 55 yards downfield over and over again? By all means, brother, do it at will if you possibly can to ice a game out. But it's gotten to a point where even if San Francisco walks into the fourth quarter up by 3 scores, like they were in this one, you're sitting back like, oh, I hope they can hold this lead. Where really good teams, playoff teams, are like, hey, Jared Goff, you can throw for 54 yards and we're going to put up 50. It's like, okay. Like, you can win like that for sure. Whereas San Francisco, it just feels like that there's this, like, execution is not Kyle Shanahan's fault. Guerendo missing a blitzer is not Kyle Shanahan's fault, but what is his fault is knowing that the personnel he has with Guerendo back there is not a great pass blocker. That's why he did not go into that game or was subbed out a lot late in the game for Patrick Taylor Jr. in Seattle. Because Taylor Jr. he's not a bigger guy, but he has that trunk you want for a pass blocker. That's why he was out of the game for a little bit of time against Seattle. And it's like, know your personnel, man. Like, you have to know your personnel. No, Ronnie Bell's not a playmaker. He's not fast. He's not going to get open. So, yes, closing games is a massive problem for San Francisco, but I don't want to harp on negative things, although this game should have been so much easier for the Niners. A lot of their games this year should be easier. They're making their lives harder for themselves, whether it's record-wise or blown coverages or blown blocking assignments. It's just, you can point to so many things where you're like, well, last year that's better, and this and that and the other is better. Like Debo dropping a screen pass in this game where the entire offensive line's in front of him, and you're like, Debo, like, that is what made you an all-pro in 2021. Catch, tuck, run. There's no one in front of you. It's the entire red and gold in their 94 throwbacks just waiting for you to get behind them. And he drops the pass, and you're just like, oh my God. Like, Debo could have easily had 2 touchdowns in this game. And it could have been 34, could have been a 40-point game for San Francisco. And it's like, goodness gracious. But I will say this. If you go back and listen to that preview podcast, I said it was going to be like 30-23. It was going to be tight late, which it was, although I didn't want it to be. But the way San Francisco has played not putting games away, it almost makes you question, like, are they a good team? Like, if I asked you honestly, based on what they've shown you in the first half thus far, where would you classify San Francisco in the NFL? Like, I don't think they're top 10. They could be, but I think they fall in like that 12 to 15 range with the potential to be like top 5. But the Chiefs are better. The Lions are far better. The Ravens are a lot better. You go to the Bills are way better. The Packers have played better, but, you know, are probably, if Jordan Love's hurt again, a little worse. The Buccaneers are inconsistent, but I mean, my goodness, like Baker Mayfield's out there throwing for 4 touchdowns against the Falcons with no receivers at all. And it's like, man, like the Rams, I think, although they're not better than San Francisco, offensively, they are far better than San Francisco right now. And that's terrifying. You're in an offensive-driven lead that if you can run the football, you'll win games. But the Rams, I think, with Kyron and Stafford and Kupp and Nakua back healthy, if that defense can kind of put stuff together, you know, the Rams are in this thing too. And it's like, goodness gracious, like, I know San Francisco beat the Seahawks and they beat the Cowboys tonight, but like, they're kind of in that range where even the Philadelphia Eagles, who have not been great this year, might be better than San Francisco. Like, they're out there, you know, putting up points, and they're not a great team by any means, but it's like they have Saquon and A.J. Brown and Devontae Smith. It's like San Francisco might be the best mediocre team in football. Like Patrick says here, the Niners at this point are, if they can get back on track, if they can get healthy, if they can turn things around, it's a great point. And that's a big if. Like, if you look at the second half of the year in Buffalo, in Green Bay, you're at home against Seattle, at home against the Rams, on the road in Arizona, against the Detroit Lions, against the Bears, a lot of those are 50-50 games. Like, you can lose every single one of those if you play the way you played the last 8 games, but you can also beat every single one of those teams if you round back into form like you were last year. So, you know, if you were going to tell me, you know, what has been the big motto for San Francisco, Patrick B's probably right. It's a big if. If is the biggest question mark for the Niners going forward. But it's a good win. You're back to 4-4. You've set yourself up to make that run. I thought Debo, I do want to give him credit tonight. It wasn't a great game from him overall. Could have had, again, 2 touchdowns had it not been for 1 drop screen pass and 1 Eric Seibert holding call. But 8 touches, 86 yards. This team is missing those check down options. He was one of them. Maybe if Purdy hits him on 4th and 1, he has 90 yards. You know, it just comes down to that if word once again, as Patrick B put in the YouTube comments. But I thought Debo was pretty good. He wasn't great by any means, but this team needed him a lot. They missed him dearly against the Kansas City Chiefs. Made Spagnuolo's defense life a lot easier to stop San Francisco, and you can tell that when Debo's on the field, despite maybe not being as explosive as he once was, having the pneumonia in the hospital, like all those things hindered him. The rib injury he got in this game, like this offense is just different with him out there. They need him out there to win these games, and unfortunately for the way he plays, the odds he's out there the next 9-ish weeks is not going to be high, but they're going to need a healthy Deebo Samuel to make a run. they really, really, really need a Deebo Samuel to be out there, because if CMC is going to have this lingering, tendonitis problem, Deebo is going to be the number one guy they have to have with no Ayuk out there. And, Deebo is, I think, maybe not, in this game wasn't the biggest game changer for the Niners, but I think he is the most important offensive weapon they have if CMC is not going to play or is going to be, held to a snap count or whatnot in the first, I guess you can say third quarter of the NFL season, the next 4 weeks or so. But I thought Deebo was pretty good. Ricky Pearsall, my goodness, man. He got shot in the chest less than, 60 days ago, and I thought he was really impactful early in this game. He had 4 catches for 38 yards, but late in the game, that led to San Francisco getting that late field goal to help separate them and make it a 13-point game again. 39-yard end around. It was like, yes, do that more often. These guys have 4.3 speed. Get them involved in the game. Ricky Pearsall, for being a receiver, you can utilize him and Cowling not like receivers. Kind of like Deebo. They're not Deebo Samuel, let's be clear, but they can do things, like end arounds and screens, and you can get them involved, get the ball in their hands. They're playmakers that can help you with their speed. Overall, he had 5 touches for 77 yards, and you combine that with Guerendo's 14 carries, 85 yards, his 3 catches for 17 yards. You look at the stats here on my notes I have here, is that Guerendo and Pearsall combined for 180 essentially, of San Francisco's 469 total yards. Rookies were impactful in a big way in this game for San Francisco. I talked about leading in to this game and post-Chiefs loss, that Kyle Shanahan was going to have to lean into his rookies. The youth movement of this team was going to be a major factor in that push they make. Obviously getting back to 500, but the bye week now, they can get more comfortable in the offense, get acclimated, and kind of get up to speed further than where they're at in week 8. Pearsall is going to be so important into this team making a run. And I think while Shanahan was kind of forced to play Guerendo tonight, I want to see more Guerendo involved in the game plan. I think his speed adds something you haven't had since CMC's been out. And not that Guerendo has to be this 14-carry guy, but if Mason gets 15 or 12 carries, why can't Guerendo get 6? And kind of give you a different look and give you more of a, I don't want to say like, thunder and lightning dynamic, but Guerendo, I think, can be a useful speed option that can add more explosiveness to an offense that, while they may get Christian McCaffrey back, still needs that. There are teams like the Chiefs, the Bills do this at times in their prime. The Patriots were great at this when they had Brady and company. They would use 4 running backs. You see Corey Dillon, Lawrence Maroney, Kevin Folk, James White, LeGarrette Blount. They would make you beat every single weapon they had. And that's what made them so dangerous, that anybody could beat you. San Francisco, wanted to have all these weapons out there. And I get the perfect idea was McCaffrey and Ayuk and Kittle and Deebo and Pearsall and Cowling. But even with Ayuk done for the year, no Jawan Jennings in this game, and CMC not playing, you can still integrate these young players into your offense once those guys inevitably get back. I think that it would be foolish for Shanahan to just say, nope, shelve those guys, the starters are back against the Buccaneers. You need to utilize your youth. They can carry what is the oldest roster in regards to starting player age at 28. They can help, kind of push them in to that second half, elevate the roster as a whole, and give them a new dynamic they've been missing all year long, which goes back to, why didn't they use Jacob Cowling? But I digress. Lori Matthews says here in the YouTube comments, the good news is you don't have to be better right now. Get CMC back, get John Feliciano back, and hopefully Dre Greenlaw comes back in a few weeks. Go get a player or two at the deadline, inject some energy into the team. Exactly, Lori. Now, I don't know if you caught the trade deadline kind of podcasts I did, and DeForest Buckner and DJ Jones and whatnot, but I think San Francisco deadline approaching, their mentality should be, look, we can win this year by also paying for next year. And you buy youthful players. We talked about, I think it was Devon Gotcha from the Patriots. He's relatively cheap. You can free up money by cutting Hargrave next year or trading him, if you will, and give you a run stuffer. For as bad as the Cowboys' run offense has been, they walked in as, I think, one of the worst run defenses in football. They also had the worst offense in football in regards to running the ball. 77 yards on average walking into this week, and then you got the news pregame that their leading rusher, Rico Dowdle, wasn't going to play. So it was Dalvin Cook, who is cooked, if you will, and Ezekiel Elliott, who you're like, wow, this should be a cakewalk for San Francisco's run defense. And in that first half, it was not. In that first half, it was pretty ugly. Now, it wasn't like big runs, but it was like sustainable runs that kept drives alive. But oddly enough, because San Francisco had that amazing third quarter to put them up, 27-10, the Dallas Cowboys had to stop running the football. They had only 56 yards of total on the ground in this game. Like San Francisco, for as bad as that first quarter was, or first half was, flipped that switch in the second half against the run, forced Dallas to have to throw the football, which I know got dicey towards the end, but that's what you want to do against Dak Prescott. They had 2 interceptions today, and like the Niners defense, I thought, continually just plays bailing out football, if you will. Like I have been hammering this point home for weeks, dating back to that Cardinals loss, that San Francisco's defense, while has not been perfect, like in that first half, they had the Dallas Cowboys on 2nd and 14, then like 3rd and 10, and they gave up the first down. Same drive, 2nd and 15, 3rd and 10, first down. Like, they're not great on 2nd and long and 3rd and long. Those have to change. But
listen in. Starbucks. It's a great day for coffee.
You watch this game, they pick off Dak on the first or second drive of the game. Jair Brown gets the pick. Bosa, who just awesome. Like Bobo says here, Bosa hitting his stride. Bosa's been in stride since that Seahawks game, that Cardinals game. Nick Bosa has been awesome the last 4 weeks or so. He has been awesome to see. He has been Defensive Player of the Year caliber. I get the sack numbers are somewhat down. Had one today, though, but it's when he gets pressures. The Seattle game, it was that pick from Mustafa on the first drive. And this one, it was getting a pressure on Prescott, who then throws the football up in the air 55 yards, gets picked off by Brown. It's Bosa's key pressures to force interceptions that continue to make him so dangerous. He's just awesome. I really thought San Francisco's pass rush was a problem for the Dallas Cowboys offensive line. It's a young offensive line. You have Tyler Guyton, a rookie out of Oklahoma, Cooper Beebe, a Kansas State rookie as a center, and then Terrence Steele was looking like a turnstile out there tonight. It was just terrible. If I was the Cowboys, I would be like, oh my God, what are we doing at right tackle? It was a consistent mismatch for them, led to, again, some interceptions and turnovers. But San Francisco's defense forcing 3 and outs on pivotal drives, even on that last drive for the Cowboys, when they could have taken the lead and put the game away for San Francisco and stole this one away from the red and gold. The first play of that drive, Warner almost gets the interception, but right behind him is Lenore. Why'd you touch the football? I would have got the pick and put the game away too and gave me a third interception on the night. And it's just you're getting in your own way despite making a good play. But I thought San Francisco's defense was maybe outside of 1 or 2 plays. The one that really hurt them was when Brown kind of picked Green and led to Lamb's second touchdown, but that's like, how do you prevent that? That's the same thing for the Dallas Cowboys where Conley picks the defensive back to Kittle's touchdown. Like, how do you defend that? Which one of those was a penalty on Conley, was called then uncalled, but I thought San Francisco's defense, and I really do think San Francisco's defense has bailed out Shanahan's offense, because the offense has just this, besides that third quarter, which was a big third quarter, no one's taking it away. Scored 21 points, but outside of that third quarter, you scored 9 total points. Like, I get it, 21 in one quarter is pretty big, but the offense has had continual issues this year, and I think has really cost them. But the defense continues to play it's good football that keeps San Francisco in games, that keeps them alive to hopefully win games. And I think that, if you're on that, Nick Sorensen stinks and the offense, is fine. I'll point to games against the Cardinals where they had 0 second half points, and they scored 16 total, where special teams scored 7 points for them. Then against the Chiefs, San Francisco's offense scored only 18 points with 10 days off. I think San Francisco's defense is playing at a much higher level than, let's say, Dan Orlovsky gives them credit for. They, I think, have 14 takeaways in this game. They forced 2 fumbles that weren't recovered by them in this one. And so San Francisco's defense and the Nick Sorensen, he's not great. He wasn't great, but the defense has played much, much better. We have a question here by Gold Blooded. It's more clearer, if I can put it on the screen for you, it's more clear if they trade, it has to be for a nose tackle that can stop the run. Welcome in Devon Gotcha from the New England Patriots. Shouldn't cost too much, under contract for the next few years. We have a question or comment by Bobo as well, saying, is the Buckner trade back to San Francisco rumors picking up steam? No. We talked about that in the last podcast. The emotional connection is there. I get why San Francisco would want to acquire Buckner. He's a great player. He played today for the first time in a few weeks off IR. The story's great, but the reality of that situation is that contract is just massive. The Colts could save, I believe, $56 million in cap if they trade Buckner the next few years. Why would the Niners make that move? Which leads me into my next question, or the next question by Patrick saying, you're the GM. Do you re-sign Brock Purdy to the max contract he will demand? It's a great question. It's one that I think San Francisco is going to have to obviously answer this offseason. Would I allow Brock Purdy to reset the quarterback market? Do I think Brock Purdy is worth $60+ million is really the question, right? I don't, because he's not Mahomes. He's not Burrow. He's not Lamar. He's not Josh Allen. That said, neither is Dak Prescott, and he's the highest paid quarterback in football. Trevor Lawrence has been terrible this year, and he's like the second highest paid quarterback next to Joe Burrow. So it's not really based on, quarterback salaries aren't entirely based on skill. It's based on when you hit the market and what the market looks like for you. So with the growing rate of quarterbacks and how the market's playing out, I mean, you're going to have to pay Brock that max contract. I think Brock is a really good quarterback. I think on his best day, Brock Purdy is the 7th to 8th best quarterback in the entire league. On his worst day, I think he is the 20th best quarterback in football. But even then, you've seen the heights that when he's playing quarterback, he can take you. And you've been looking for that for a long time, right? You had Jimmy G, and then you lost the Super Bowl, and then you gambled for Trey Lance, which it was good to see after the game today. The entire team essentially walked over and was like dabbing him up, saying, how much they missed him and whatnot, which Trey Lance is not hated here by the team. It's just the way things play out at times. But you gambled 3 first-round draft picks, and that didn't work out. So you had Brock Purdy. You're going to have to pay Brock Purdy. I get it. When you watch the Chiefs game and he throws 3 picks, you're like, ugh. Even in my comments here, to Patrick B's question, why pay Brock Purdy, $40 million when you can pay Jameis Winston $3 million until you find a better solution? Well, I tell you what, Patrick, Brock Purdy on his worst day is a heck of a lot better than Jameis Winston, who threw 30 interceptions in 1 year. Let's not forget that. I like Jameis. He's a good guy. I am very happy to watch him play football for the Browns today. I thought it was wow, that should have happened before Watson's injury. But Brock is a much better value at $40 million than Jameis is at $3 million. Jameis can be this golden goose 1 week and then be Duck Dookie for the next month and a half. It's one game, you beat the Ravens, it's great, but Brock is a better quarterback than Jameis. Jameis is a heck of a backup, but to put Brock kind of in that, pick up Jameis instead, it's disrespectful to a quarterback that's gone to a Super Bowl and been to an NFC Championship game. It's just kind of messed up. But if Brock wants $40 million a year, that's a discount. That's not 65. You take that in a heartbeat. My goodness, if Brock said, "Hey, I'll take 40," you jump on that as fast as you can. You sprint to Jed York and say, "Sign this right now. Sign this right now." But that said, one thing I do think that has been in my mind this year, and it's not been a terrible thing, but it has kind of showed itself, or I guess been this underlying problem I've noticed with Brock, is that one, the hero ball stuff is definitely alive and well. He tries to do too much on plays. There was one play in this game where he's rolling to his right, there's pressure in his face, he's trying to buy time, which is great, love that, be a playmaker, I'm cool with that, but unfortunately, sometimes Brock tries to do too much when he doesn't have to. Be a playmaker, but you have to ride that fine line of scrambling, off-scheduled stuff, making big plays with your legs, and throwing in the tight windows. But also, if it's 2nd and 3, or it's 3rd and 4, or if it's, whatever it is, 2nd and 8, whatever it is, you can still convert on 3rd down. Why force a pass and cost your team maybe a game or a pivotal drive? Brock on this one, rolling to his right, has 3 Dallas Cowboys right in front of him, tries to fit the ball into a tight window over them, they tip it up, almost falls into a Dallas Cowboy defender's hands, which, had he caught it, could have been a pick six the other way. And we're talking Niners lose, they're 3-5, you maybe just trade some players away, yikes. Then later in the game, earlier in the game, he fumbles. And that moves him at a field goal range, and you're like, this game should be 10-9 at halftime. And it forces a punt, and you're like, Brock, you had 3 picks last week. You had the fumble that thankfully Aaron Banks was like, okay, I'm gonna be a ball carrier for a second, and pick the ball up and had some awareness for a little bit. But there has been, I think, more turnover-worthy plays for Brock this year. He's been really good at times. In that conversation of wow, Brock's a Pro Bowler, he's top 5. Then there have been some plays where you're like, ooh, that was really ugly. That's Jimmy Garoppolo, oh no kind of stuff, and you're just like, why is that happening? I did some math, some calculations, if you will. He has 7 total turnovers this year, those being interceptions. Almost threw one tonight, which almost means nothing, but still. He's also fumbled 3 times. they've not been recovered by the other team, but like he's fumbled, 3 or 4 times this year. So like that's kind of like I don't love that for Brock, which if you're going to win big games, you can't do that stuff. We have a question here by Nathan Banks saying, what's going on with the defense, Sterling? We need to reevaluate them, maybe upgrade the defensive coordinator. No, and no. I just talked about the defense has played good football. I get it. 24 points to the Dallas Cowboys. Should have been 17. Should have been like 13, whatever it was, going into halftime. Offense didn't score some points. Ball given back to Dallas Cowboys offense. Some broken plays. Like, you take away the Charvarius Ward ticky-tack DPI that gave the Dallas Cowboys new life when they run the football twice and got nothing, and it was like 3rd and 12 or whatever it was. DPI gets them into midfield. They score a touchdown. You're like, okay, here we go. Now it's a 10-point game. And in that broken play where Brown and Green get tangled up, it's like, I don't think San Francisco's defense, their issues tonight were not, like, oh, we suck. It was like, oh, we caught a bad break or we ran into each other, which is like, that's not bad coverage. That's not, I can't fault you for that. Like, that's okay. That sucks. But it's like San Francisco's defense got 2 takeaways. And that second half made the Cowboys one-dimensional. And in that one-dimensional, play they had, shut them out in that third quarter. Like, the reason why San Francisco's offense went on that run of 21 points was because the defense was so good in that third quarter. And, the defense being poor in that fourth quarter was because some bad breaks they had. But ultimately, you go to the defense in this game, Sam Ekwonu was playing well, got a sack in this one, got some pressures in this game. Nick Bosa, already mentioned him, was awesome again. He was eating Terrence Steele alive in this one. They were in Dak Prescott's face all night, and they should have been. The Dallas Cowboys have a young, bad offensive line. They were getting pressure. Again, they had those 2 picks. I thought Jair Brown was awesome tonight. Maybe outside of, maybe passing along a play here or there. That first CeeDee Lamb touchdown may have been his fault, but other than that, got the pick. He was thumping dudes in the running game. He was running downhill on dudes all night. He was just laying some wood. This was maybe his best game of the year so far. You can tell primetime, lights, throwback jerseys. Like, he was ready to go from snap number 1. Malik Mustafa was also really good in this game. For as young as San Francisco's safeties are, that is usually an opportunity for veteran quarterbacks with star receivers to test them. And I think they've held up extremely well in their 3 games together. Brown was not great against the Chiefs, but in this game and against Seattle, far better. But you're facing Andy Reid and Mahomes, and Travis Kelce. You're going to make mistakes against those guys, although Brown's issue was biting on some cheese on play fakes. But in this game, much more consistent play, much more consistent coverage, good run defending coming downhill. Mustafa had 2 just flashing back-to-back plays. Prescott throws the ball in the back of the end zone. Was it Span Ford? Goes up for the touchdown catch. Mustafa sticks with him, knocks the ball out, saves the touchdown. You're like, that was awesome. That's a great play. That's what changes games and saves you early in games. The very next play, though, Mustafa running downhill on like a little dump off to Ferguson, lays that sucker out, forces a fumble, and the ball like pops out and it's like laying on Renardo Green's back. And you're like, somebody pick it up. Ferguson picks it back up, but still, like, that's a touchdown saving play and a turnover almost forced in back-to-back plays. I thought really good stuff from both those guys tonight. Renardo Green, besides that one play where he got picked, I thought was really good tonight as well. On CeeDee Lamb, he was locking down Tolbert for most of the night, which should have happened. The Dallas Cowboys really only have one receiver because Brandon Cooks is out. But I thought Green has just been phenomenal through the first, 3 games he's played. They are able to mix and match so much better with him on the field. He can play man coverage. Like, he's a player you point to and say, you are the future starting cornerback, and you have number one cornerback traits that over the next 2 or 3 years, you're going to be the guy. Like, he's that good. Now, he's young. He'll make mistakes, but right now you can see there's those traits in him where you're like, man, like, this guy can lock down the opposing team's number one receiver once he gets the reps he needs. Like, there's something special in there somewhere. And then Diamador Lenore is just the best cornerback on this team. He has been, I think, since training camp of this year. He's outplayed Mooney Ward all year long. More picks, interceptions. He had one against Mahomes. He had one against Aaron Rodgers. He's had one against Dak Prescott. He has a knack for finding the football. He's just good. On the play where he gets the pick, he jams Lamb on the line, or jams his receiver on the line, then, like, just physical, like, I'm not moving an inch, and I'm going to stick with you in coverage. Dak thinks, I can fit it over that guy, floats it up right to Lenore, gets the pick, gets the shoulder and the helmet in bounds, and you're like, playmaker. Like, lockdown, sticky in coverage, doesn't get called for penalties despite being sticky in coverage. Lenore is a feisty SOB. It's who you want on your defense. He just embraces the Niner mentality of sticky playmaking, go after the ball style of defense Sorensen, Ryans, and Sala, and even last year Steve Wilks wanted. I think, for a lot of people that didn't like Steve Wilks for Shanahan firing him after last year, you have to give Steve Wilks a lot of credit for the cornerback that Lenore has become. I think that is really important to point out. Wilks, I was there during training camp every single day last year. Wilks and Lenore were tied at the hip. It was picking his brain. It was doing reps together. Like, Steve Wilks has been integral in the rise of Lenore. And, of course, Lenore himself putting in the work and playing great football. For the most part, outside of that kind of last 2 or 3 drive stretch in the fourth quarter,
The number one selling product of its kind with over 20 years of research and innovation. Botox Cosmetic, out of botulinum toxin A, is a prescription medicine used to temporarily make moderate to severe frown lines, crow's feet, and forehead lines look better in adults.
Effects of Botox Cosmetic may spread hours to weeks after injection, causing serious symptoms. Alert your doctor right away as difficulty swallowing, speaking, breathing, eye problems, or muscle weakness may be a sign of a life-threatening condition. Patients with these conditions before injection are at highest risk. Don't receive Botox Cosmetic if you have a skin infection. Side effects may include allergic reactions, injection site pain, headache, eyebrow and eyelid drooping, and eyelid swelling. Allergic reactions can include rash, welts, asthma symptoms, and dizziness. Tell your doctor about medical history, muscle or nerve conditions including ALS or Lou Gehrig's disease, myasthenia gravis, or Lambert-Eaton syndrome, and medications, including botulinum toxins, as these may increase the risk of serious side effects. For full safety information, visit BotoxCosmetic.com or call 877-351-0300.
See for yourself at BotoxCosmetic.com.
CeeDee Lamb was doing nothing. Lamb was doing nothing for 3.5 quarters in this game. He had no touchdowns. He had 3 catches. CeeDee Lamb's bread and butter was garbage time, make a comeback, style of stats. Whereas the first 3 quarters, it was just Lenore locking him down. And he's just been awesome. I want to say this was also Charvarius Ward's best game of the season thus far. He was much better in run defense in this one. He's struggled a lot this year in biting on plays and run defense, and it's just not been a good, final year of that contract for him, to a point where even now, I think they might be better off trading him. But that's just me. That's just me thinking, forward of, hey, what looks better. But if they feel like, one thing with Ward is he's been banged up since last year. He had the adductor injury during the Super Bowl. I think he had a wrist or an ankle this year, whatever it was, lower body injury this year that kind of hindered him and didn't play against the Seahawks. There's been some injuries. Maybe the bye week refreshes him, does him some good, he gets healthy again. But I thought this may have been his best game. He had the 2 pivotal DPIs for sure. One of them was not, I think, a DPI. But that first one certainly was. But you'll live with that with Ward. He's relatively grabby. I know last year, I think it was the game against the Vikings, leaving that game, he was like first in the entire league in illegal contact calls. So he is grabby. He's Lenore, sticky in coverage, but grabby. So because he's been injured, you're seeing a higher increase of those penalties. Tonight was one of those examples of. But I think this was like the secondary for San Francisco has become kind of a weapon for them. But on third and longs and second and longs, it's become a problem. But I do wonder if that is more of a linebacker problem. Not Fred Warner. He's phenomenal. But even in this one, you did see Fred bite a few times early in the game, but then pick himself back up later and play great football. Forced to fumble in this one again. But I don't really have a problem with the defense. Like, there are small things to clean up for sure. Blitzing has been a problem. But like the problems in this game to me, was that dreadful first half from the offense where the defense in this one, had it not been for a kind of crazy last few drives for Dallas, they allowed 10 points. And this game could have been 30-10. And we're like, wow, they're locking them down. Shutting them up, like Dallas, F them kind of thing, and we're all pulling our shirts up, showing the F Dallas undershirts, like yeah. But I'm really not worried about San Francisco's defense at all, Nathan. It's the offense. It really is the offense. Laurie Matthews says here, I think the inconsistencies in personnel are affecting Brock. It hurts the chemistry, and so many guys are coming in and out of the lineup, and of course you're missing CMC. Yeah, I don't know if it's a personnel issue exactly, but I do think you're onto something there. Guerendo missed most of training camp, didn't play in the preseason. Pearsall got shot and was hurt throughout training camp off and on. Ayuk missed the entirety of training camp and was like, I'm here, I'm making millions now. Now he's gone for the year. Debo and Jennings, as you can tell, and Kittle have been the more consistent pieces because they've been there for the most part. And Jennings, I think you kind of saw his breakout coming because of how good he was in training camp and how early he was there. So I think you're onto something that the Niners, while yes, are missing pieces, what it really comes down to is having an offseason where you have all these guys together. Of course, CMC missed a lot of the offseason, didn't play during the preseason, which that wasn't going to happen anyways. But in regards to personnel maybe affecting Brock Purdy, you're right, yes, but that also is what separates you from being elite, great, and good. So, like, Dak Prescott, because he doesn't have Brandon Cooks and the running game's not great, you see who Dak really is. He's a guy that will force throws, will make mistakes, and he'll win you a couple games here or there. But he also is under 500 now. Like, that's Dak Prescott. He's a 500 quarterback. He's Kirk Cousins with a little more mobility, which will help you in games for sure. But for Brock, you are in a much better offensive scheme that, like, if I were to point to the critical problems of this offense that certainly exist even in wins like this, I think one is Shanahan letting defensive coordinators dictate what he does instead of making them change to what he's doing, which seems so obvious, but okay, Kyle. And then I think, personnel comes into effect, but that's the thing is, like, even despite the personnel problems they've had, Mason's been good for the majority of the year. Kind of breaking down now. Hopefully he can get healthy. And like, you've had Debo for every game but 2. You've had Kittle for every game but 1. And Ayuk's been bad like all year besides that Cardinals game, which you lost. So it's like, I want to agree with you. And I think I do, but I don't think it's a personnel problem. I think it's just not having an offseason. Like, everything kind of trickles down from not having the off-season program, the OTAs, training camp. Who San Francisco is having to rely on now didn't have those. who they were having to rely on before Ayuk went down was a player that was their best separator, who was supposed to be able to beat man coverage, and because he wasn't there for the entirety of the offseason program and training camp and preseason, he couldn't do anything. So I think San Francisco's ceiling is limited because of those things. I mean, I'll be honest with you, I didn't pick San Francisco to win the Super Bowl anyways this year. I didn't think they'd be 4-4, but I did not pick them to win the Super Bowl because I didn't think they were going to. And I don't think they are. But you get Christian McCaffrey back, you get Pearsall integrated, Cowling's up to speed, Kittle's playing great football. He's been awesome. Like, George Kittle has been house money against the Dallas Cowboys. I think in his last 2 games against the Dallas Cowboys, it's like over 250 receiving yards and 4 touchdowns. That's really good. Like, he is finding himself in record books upon record books. Like, George Kittle is the greatest tight end in Niner history. Like, that's just the case. Whether it's stat-wise, I get big games will jade you to that, but he's been awesome. I just think San Francisco, like, if we look ahead for a little bit and just kind of, put this game behind us, right? San Francisco wins. They're 4-4. There's been some problems. We talked for an hour about the good, the bad, the ugly, the pretty, what needs to change, what needs to get better, and whatnot, and you hope what can happen. But Lori says Kittle single-handedly saved her fantasy team. I'm sure tonight was a big one for a lot of people. My opponent had the Niners defense, which I was like, interception, but like, damn it. But I'll take the win nonetheless. Looking ahead, though, the bye week, you get healthy, you self-scout. There's a reason why Shanahan, where San Francisco was, the way things felt, season's over, sell the team, trade away your players, rebuild, restart, retool. Like, you have to feel a little better after tonight. Did you beat a great team? No, but you beat a team 500 off their bye week. You got back to 500. Like, there's been good teams that have lost to worse teams this year. The Ravens lost to the Browns. And the Ravens are good. The Bengals are bad. The Jets are just a you-know-what show out there. Just terrible. And they have Aaron Rodgers and Devontae Adams and Pearsall and Garrett Wilson and that defense, and they still suck. They lost to the Patriots. The Patriots suck. But looking ahead for San Francisco, you took care of business. You did exactly what you needed to do. Hey Niner Media in the YouTube comments, what's going on, man? Hope you're doing great. But you did what you needed to do. You're 500. You get to have your ailing players get healthy. Maybe you get Jordan Mason back to 100% or 85%. Hopefully the shoulder's okay. Hopefully it isn't too serious. You get CMC back. You get that check down option back for San Francisco. You get your rating. I know we talk about how important Christian McCaffrey is and rating offensive player of the year. And I would always push back on that and say yeah, but it shouldn't make the Niners offense this bad. That said, which is exactly what Niner Media says here, imagine rotating CMC and Jordan Mason. One, if you do that, you keep both those guys fresh. And I'd pop Guerendo in there at certain times. You got those 3 guys out there. CMC gets 12 carries, 13 carries. Mason gets 5 or 6. Guerendo gets 2 or 3. You can, go back. I talked about in the preseason that, Mason looks amazing. And, once CMC gets back, you'll have this, LaDainian Tomlinson, Michael Turner, two-headed monster in the backfield. I mean, screw it, man. You got Darren Sproles, who's just larger and beefier in Isaac Guerendo, which obviously I'm, being, no over-exaggeration, but it's you do have 3 capable backs that can help you win, and if Shanahan can just utilize that play action and do the outside zone stuff, you are going to win a ton of games. You watch the Buffalo Bills today, they're passing the ball around. they're also running the football a ton. The Packers are a good team that's playing a lot better defense that has just as critical issues as San Francisco does. Jordan Love on that back foot, he's inaccurate. He'll throw picks. He'll take chances. He'll make dumb, young quarterback mistakes. The Packers are beatable. Even in Green Bay in December, they're beatable. The Buccaneers are beatable. They lost today to the Falcons. So it's not like you walk into the second half and you're like, I gotta play all these teams. I'm scared. It's like, no, the defense is playing good enough football to beat anybody. The defense played good enough football to beat the Chiefs. Like, I mean, come on. And if the offense can just find the extra level, and instead of putting up 18 or 20, they're putting up 28, 27, they'll win the next 6 to 7 games. They'll be 11-5 or 11-6, whatever it is now. They'll be 10-7. Like, this team is not far off. It just feels that way. They have things to fix for sure. But looking ahead, like, the Niners they'll probably lose to the Bills, I'm being honest with you, but they can beat the Buccaneers, who are going to have to play this tight end heavy scheme. They'll turn the ball over a lot. Baker will throw picks. They'll fumble. Like, they're unafraid to play a gunslinger-like system, but like, everybody's like that. And there's no Mike Evans and no Chris Godwin. Like, you can pounce on those teams. You can beat the Packers. You can beat the Rams. They'll be tough games for sure, but it's all about just playing a little more consistent. And in that third quarter, like I already said, that was the best football San Francisco has played all year long. All year long. It was drive. Here, we'll bring down the play log for us right now. Okay. San Francisco gets the ball out of halftime. Feeling pretty good about themselves. You know, it's a close game, not where you want it to be. It's 10-6. Okay, you know, you get the ball coming out of halftime. You go 5 plays, 60 yards in 2 minutes. It's, you know, you get the penalty because Aubrey kicks the ball short of the landing zone, at ball at the 40-yard line. Purdy runs for 9, then he scrambles for 4, then you hit that 43-yard pass to Kittle. Boom, touchdown. 3 plays later, interception, ball on Dallas' side of the field. Then 7 plays later, touchdown. Then they punt, then you get another touchdown. That is the most consistent football San Francisco has played all year long. Touchdown, takeaway, touchdown, 3 and out, touchdown. Like, that right there is like, that is 49ers football. That's who they've been 2020 or 2019, 2021, 2022, 2023. If they can get back to not even that exactly. Say it was touchdown, punt, touchdown, field goal, touchdown. Like, the issue with San Francisco is they've been trading field goals and touchdowns. The other team scores 7, you score 3. It's only a 1-score game. Then you can never find your way back into the end zone, where I think San Francisco tonight was 100% in the red zone, which the Dallas Cowboys have the worst red zone defense in football, but it's just about gaining confidence going into the bye week. Confidence into the bye week means a ton for a team like San Francisco that in this game dominated. 19 first downs, 18 for 16 on third downs, 50%, only ran 5 more plays than Dallas, had almost 470 yards, 12 total drives, averaged almost 7.5 yards per play, ran for 223 yards, and was 3 for 4 in the red zone with 2 takeaways. I mean, stat-wise, box score-wise, they dominated the crap out of the Dallas Cowboys, but because of a late push, it looks a lot closer, right? If they can just clean that up, close games a little better, which I know is a problem. It has been for a long time, but they just play a little more like that third quarter, more consistent. It comes down to the offense capitalizing on the defense. That's really what it comes down to. We have seen this offense too many times watch their defense get the ball back at midfield and keep the game close or preserve a lead and say, hey, extend it for us. They don't. The Niners in this game, in that third quarter, got the lead themselves offensively. The defense said, hey, we got the pick. We'll preserve the lead. Go extend it. Then they got a touchdown. They extended it. And the defense said, hey, we'll get you a punt too. Do it again. And they did it again. Like, this was, in that third quarter, the best football San Francisco has played all year. I could argue that despite how bad this game was towards the end, we're all biting our nails like, oh, they're going to lose this one. Could I argue this is the best game they played all year long? Like, seriously. Maybe outside of that Seahawks game, which this may have been the first game all year, outside of an Anders Carlson, botched kickoff, special teams didn't cost them. They held Kevontae Turpin in this one. You go to the box score for a second. Kevontae Turpin is the best kick returner in football. He didn't do nothing. He had 5 kick returns for 115 yards. Do some quick math. That's only 23 on average. His longest was 26. He had 1 punt for 13 yards. The Dallas Cowboys were the best special teams unit in the league. And against that unit, the 31st ranked unit in the Niners was awesome. And you're like, Brian Schneider, is this the redemption arc we've been waiting for? It was awesome. San Francisco, I think, may have played their most complete game, minus some awkwardness in that fourth quarter that made this game close. And I feel pretty confident in saying that. I never, even despite it getting scary towards the end, and they could almost lost this game, I didn't really feel like they were going to lose it. I was pretty confident over the Seahawks game, in the Cardinals game, and really even the Rams game, that they were going to pull this one out. But they're back to 4-4. They're feeling pretty good, in my opinion, and played their best game cohesively all year long. Got to improve some things. You want to improve those second and third and longs on defense, but you're getting takeaways, you're getting sacks. Maybe in a couple of days' time, we're talking about, wow, they acquired XYZ player, and oh, we're back, baby. CMC's back. They're 4-4. Second place in the NFC West, technically tied, but, tiebreakers and stuff make them second place. But they're in a good spot, not a perfect spot, but they're in a place to make that second half push. And God, I'm hoping they can make that run. Tell me down below in the YouTube comments what you thought of the win. How do you feel about San Francisco? How do you feel about the playoff odds? Can they make that second half push? What'd you make of Brock Purdy's performance? Yay? Nay? Ixnay? Whatever you want to put in the comments, tell me down below, what did you make of Isaac Guerendo and Ricky Pearsall having nearly 180 yards of San Francisco's 440? What did you think of the Niners' Week 8 Sunday Night Football victory over the hated Dallas Cowboys? I'm feeling pretty good. Again, it's not perfect, but I'll take it. A win's a win. A wise man once told me stats are for losers. The only thing that matters is the win column and the loss column. They won tonight. We'll take that. We have, 14 days with no Niners football? I want to cry, but I'll take it. The guys need to rest up, get healthy, and make sure they're ready, because that second half push is going to be hard, daunting, grueling, but in the same breath, very, very winnable. The season is far from over. Always make sure to come right back here after every single win. And thankfully, we're talking Victory Mondays going into the bye week. If you could follow us on social media at 49ers_access is the X or the Twitter. 49ers.access is the Instagram. And if you want to watch your Niners play, heck, if you're a Dallas Cowboys fan and you want to watch them play, go to SeatGeek.com, find your tickets, and when you check out, use promo code 49ersaccess. 49 ERSACCESS at SeatGeek.com to save yourself $20 off your first purchase. And if you're waiting for NFL trade deadline news on November 5th, don't go to Twitter, don't go to ESPN or Fox Sports. Go to SportsSpider.com. It is your one-stop shop for everything from podcasts, YouTube videos, the latest articles, or even tweets, if you will, from your favorite journalists on about your favorite team in one place, so you don't have to search 19 different sources for your team's news. Go to SportsSpider.com. It is your one-stop shop for all your favorite teams' news this season. Want to thank Niner Media, Lori Matthews, Bobo, Patrick B, Nathan Banks, and every single one of you, Gold-Blooded, Kawachipto, Andrew, I think it's Maulo, everyone that commented and asked questions in the YouTube chat. Thank you so much. Hope you like, share, subscribe, you leave that review, and if you could, give us a 5-star rating on the audio podcasting platforms, Apple, Spotify. It's the cheapest, freest, and easiest way to help the show out. And look, it's the Victory Monday, folks. We ain't got football for 14 days. Stay tuned for NFL trade deadline content coming your way very, very soon. Hopefully CMC comes back in the next few weeks, and we're talking that second half push very soon as well. Thank you so much for watching, listening, and as always, my name is Sterling Bennett, and stay faithful.